All right, so I'm talking to Ramon, who's a listing agent of a property now. We're kind of discussing different solutions to help a seller get out of a home that's listed for about $445,000, but they owe $441,000, and they're at a point right now that if they could find a buyer at that list price of $455,000, then they would still have to bring some money to closing to cover commissions and closing costs. So everybody's on board to help this seller get out from underneath this house, but there are some limitations with this. And so here's how we are looking at this, both with an investor hat and also with a creative hat as a real estate broker or agent. So the first thing we look at is there a cash offer we can make to buy a property from an investor's perspective? Now that typically works best for sellers who are in urgent situations. Their houses need a lot of work, and they can't do a traditional listing, and the property is not bankable. In other words, a buyer can't get financing that's not going to pass a 4-point inspection, and they're relying on cash buyers. So this property doesn't fit that description. And the seller isn't able to sell it at a big discount anyway because they don't have enough equity in it. Again, purchase price or market value is probably in the mid 400s or a little bit lower than that, and the loan balance is 441. So the second option would be, okay, well, what if we could structure owner financing on it, whereby because the seller's not expecting any down payment, you could literally work a deal where we could do a loan takeover. Seller can put the property into a trust that protects the loan, and then a buyer can come along and just take over the obligation of the loan. The challenge with this property is the interest rate on it is 7.25%. Ramon, that means they probably purchased it within the last year or two?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so yeah, it was a recent purchase. Pretty much, guys, anything that was purchased with a low down payment loan, that's USDA, FHA, 5% conventional, VA loan, anything that's purchased with a high leverage loan in the last 2 years, all of 23, all of 24, is 100% right now. Seller's going to have to bring cash at closing if they do any kind of real estate commission on it, and they're paying closing costs because property values did not go up since then. If anything, they went down, and the mortgage balances, unless they did some kind of crazy improvement on the property and bought it at a discount, those properties are upside down right now. So a lot of those are going to be short sales. So what I would suggest, Ramon, have you had conversations with the seller about doing a short sale? What's their next move right now? Like after they sell this house, what are they trying to do? So here's a situation with the seller is, like Ramon said, divorce scenario, and they're bleeding out in two ways. They're bleeding out, chasing the market down, and they're going to have to continue to do price reductions. They're also going to bleed out if it does sell at a lower price. They're going to bring that cash at closing. Ramon was saying they have up to about $16,000 they can earmark to bring to closing to make the loan whole and settle this property and get it behind them. But then the third way they're bleeding out is carrying this $3,600 monthly payment at a 7.25% on a $440,000 loan balance. In a lot of ways, you almost have to come to a point where you can make a business decision. If the property's not selling, they have two options. They can either keep reducing the price and keep expanding the amount of money they're going to have to bring to closing, if they even have that amount of cash when it eventually sells, because showings are non-existent on the property at its current price right now. That's the case with a lot of properties out there. Or they can go to the short sale route. If they go to the short sale route, we can then update the listing with the short sale, and then we can put the property price down to a point where we know we can hook a buyer, and then work to get the lender to take the haircut and get the seller up to $10,000 of relocation money. And we can do that at no cost to the seller and no cost to the listing agent. It's a way to get out from underneath this property, and the seller would avoid the potential for a foreclosure hitting their record. It would avoid them having to bleed out more cash carrying this monthly payment and having to bring more to closing. In fact, they could actually potentially walk away from closing with some relocation money. When we get these approved, we always get them off of the liability of getting a deficiency judgment. This was their primary home, so that's not going to be a problem. Getting the lender to release them from any forgiven debt or canceled debt, because the lender is going to have to take a haircut on their loan balance, considering where the market is right now and the fact that this thing isn't moving. Then now we can do a short sale and have half the impact on their credit and get a mortgage ready in 2 years or maybe 3 years at most if they work to improve their credit. So, and in a lot of cases, if the seller can't continue making the mortgage payments, that's the bleeding that can stop as well immediately. So that's a recommendation I would have, Ramon.